Welcome back to Mission North America. January, wintertime in the Midwest, and I'm looking forward to an upcoming missions training session in Florida. Somebody has to do it, as Brother Bernard says. Christmas for Christ. Man, Christmas has come and gone, but you can still give to Christmas for Christ. If your church hasn't given, this needs to happen now. We don't need any zeros on the reports, okay? 100% participation from every church in North America. That includes your church. Matter of fact, we're appealing this year for support from our overseas missionaries from that district of global missions that they would support North American missions. We need a great offering this year. We've cut our operational cost. Through the years, we're going to be continuing to look at everything we can do. We want to see our missionaries benefit. I have been talking to you, with you for the last 3 months about this process of making sure that you have a purpose and that your processes connect to your purpose. And we've talked about some dangers. We've talked about some things that need to change. There will have been a little bit additional posting on this particular topic, including some of the stories that I've included here on truth-publications.com. Look over at that, and you can print those out, I suppose, and use them as you would like. I'm going to talk now about how that you develop a strategy for influencing people to accomplish your purpose. And this has to be intentional. That's the reason my blog deals with intentional influence. Some people gain influence accidentally, but I'm not interested in that. We're not talking about the luck of the draw here. We're talking about intentional influence. How do you gain intentional influence with people? Okay, first, I think it's important to remind you that becoming that influencer is as much an issue of what you don't do as what you do. So you need to ask yourself the question of, what do I stop doing? What are the things that I let go of? What are the unimportant things here? Okay, the second thing that I would say is that you need to begin using terminology that shows you have an objective or a purpose in mind. In other words, don't just tell people, here's what we're going to do. Tell them why we're going to do this. We have evangelist Billy Huey coming to be with us. He is a prospect evangelist. He is coming to be with us. We will have a number of new visitors come while he's here. After he leaves, we're going to follow up with every one of those visitors who come with the hope and expectation of getting a home Bible study. We don't expect and anticipate that everybody who visits during his revival will come, so don't be disheartened by that. It's part of the process. It's part of the purpose. Understand why we're doing what we're doing. If you don't know why you're doing it, you probably are not going to be effective at really seeing the harvest accomplished. So, talk about things that you stop doing, and secondly, get purpose-driven in your communication. Use the right terminology. It validates the project. Okay, third thing, and I draw this from the book about the purpose-driven church that I thought was very insightful. And when I looked at the church I pastored, the author talks about those 5 C's. You have people who are part of the community. You have people who are part of the congregation, people who are converted, people who are committed, and then people who are at the core. And these are circles within each other. And the objective is to always be getting people from the community into the congregation, drawing that further out circle in. So you're always trying to move people toward the center. You're trying to expand the core of the church. Okay, so when you think about the actions, when you think about the behavior, when you think about the events that you've got scheduled for the rest of this year, what is the target audience? Who are you trying to help move to a next level? Okay, there need to be some events that reach to the community. There need to be some things that reach to the congregation. Congregation being defined as those people that they would call this church their home. You would preach their funeral. You need to be moving people from the congregation into that place of being converted. Okay, when they're converted, it takes a long time to disciple them. You've heard me say that over and over again. You want to then be moving them toward commitment. Okay, each of these things very different, has a very different objective, has a very different target. For me, I move people toward commitment by doing little things like using Fitly Frame, having an annual stewardship campaign, having an annual time when we did job fair and invited people to participate and get engaged in a ministry. All of those things had the intent of moving people from simply being converted to being committed. The discipleship program had the same objective. What is your target audience for what you're doing? It's not one size fits all. I would do an annual Midnight Madness leadership training that went from 9 until about 1 in the morning. We'd have pizza and soda, and I would invite people who were kind of on the edge of the church, people who had leadership potential. Most of them already converted, some of them committed but not at the core, and then some who were still simply part of the congregation. Always trying to move them, getting them thinking about, this is my church. How do I participate in this? Okay, then the last thing I would say, and this is just kind of a final insight. I read about a pastor whose church grew from 60 to 6,000 in 19 years. And he talked about church growth and how that every living thing grows. They're not obligated to grow to prove that they are alive, but their growth is a byproduct. Growth is not the obligation. Growth is not a goal. Growth is, it can be sudden in creation. I just read about the church in Carmax, Yukon Territory, a little village of less than 500 people who are Native Americans that after months and months and months and years of diligent work there, where only a handful had been converted, that in just less than 15 days, 21 people received the infilling of the Holy Ghost. Sudden growth. Sudden change. Amazing. It can happen. Growth for growth's sake is not always a healthy thing. That's the logic of cancer. Cells reproducing, growing. It grows without purpose. It has no focus. And eventually, the cancer consumes. And the fellow who told that story gave pastors 3 suggestions. One, don't work at things that will produce growth. Deal with the things that hinder growth. And second, make preparation for fruitfulness. You got to prepare. What is your plan for making disciples? You're going to be hearing more about how every church needs to not be an ostrich. We're going to ask you that you just lock in. I'm not an ostrich. I'm not an ostrich church. We're going to take care of our babies. And third, be there. Show up. Take shortcuts. Some great battles of history have been won because an enemy did something foolish. And if the victor had not been there to take advantage of it, the moment of history could not have happened. Take advantage of the moment. Be faithful. Be consistent. Be steadfast. You can be an effective leader. You can develop effective leaders. Get people taking stuff off your plate. Hey, today, go in there, write that check out for North American Mission, send it to your district office for Christmas for Christ, because when you do, you are supporting the greatest thing happening in North America this week and this weekend.